Today I want to share with you 3 ways that you can spot or identify pride and self-righteousness and whether or not you or those around you are slowly turning into modern day Pharisees. That's coming up next on The Beat. Hey everyone, my name is Alan Parr. Thank you all so much for tuning into The Beat. If this is your first time here on this channel, we answer frequently asked questions about the Christian faith. We talk about dating and relationships from a Christian perspective, and we do all sorts of other Bible-based videos. So if you're new here, consider subscribing. So today I just want to talk about something that all of us are prone to dealing with, which is pride, self-righteousness, and arrogance. And if we're not careful, slowly over time, we will find ourselves turning into a modern day Pharisee. So in Matthew chapter 23, I believe there's 3 things in this passage of scripture that Jesus is dealing with as he is talking to the people, and he's trying to urge them and warn them to avoid being like these Pharisees. Verses 1 and 2, it says, "Then Jesus said to the crowds and to his disciples, the teachers of the law and the Pharisees sit in Moses' seat." And so the first thing that we see here is that we can tell that we are trending towards being a self-righteous, prideful, arrogant person whenever we are very, very quick to judge other people. So the phrase sitting in Moses' seat has to go back to the book of Exodus. And if you go back to Exodus 17 or 18 or so, you will see that in the wilderness, Moses' job responsibilities were pretty much to sit on the seat and simply just judge all of the people as they brought their disputes and their complaints and their issues to him. And he would sit there all day and just simply judge the people. And so by Jesus going back and referencing this phrase, sitting in Moses' seat, he's simply saying some of you think that your role is to sit around and judge everybody else in the things that they're doing in their lives. So contrary to what people may think, the Bible doesn't prohibit Christians from passing judgment on people. It simply encourages us to do it in the right way. In other words, take a look at yourself first before you pass judgment on someone else. I actually have an entire video on how to judge other people properly. I'm going to put a link to that in the description box below and a card as well. The second way that we can tell that we are slowly becoming a modern day self-righteous, prideful, arrogant Pharisee is if we are living a hypocritical life. Notice Jesus says here in verse 3, "So you must be careful to do everything they tell you, but do not do what they do." Why? "For they do not practice what they preach. They tie up heavy, cumbersome loads and put them on other people's shoulders, but they themselves are not willing to lift a finger to move them." In other words, what Jesus is saying here is that, you know what? These people, they go out of their way to try to tell everybody else how they need to live their lives. And they put these heavy loads, all these things that they say, you should do this or you shouldn't do that. Or if you do this, you're a sinner. Or if you don't do that, you're not a fully devoted follower of Jesus Christ. And so he says, put all these things and these heavy loads on people. But yet, if you look at their lives, they are not practicing what they're preaching, nor are they willing to do the very things that they are telling other people that they need to do. And so whenever you find yourself giving everyone else advice on what to do about their sin issues, their faith, how to trust God, their marriage, all sorts of other things, but yet when you look closely at your life, if you're just honest about it, you are not really following the same advice that you're giving other people. This could be a sign that we're trending towards being proud, being arrogant, being self-righteous, being a modern day Pharisee. But the one I want to spend the most time on in this video is number 3, and that is a focus on external righteousness rather than internal righteousness. Notice that Jesus says here in verse 5, everything they do is done for people to see. So in other words, whenever you find yourself going out of your way to do things, spiritual things, with the hope and in the intent, the motivation that people will notice what you did and have a perspective about you or think that you are spiritual because they see you do this or see you do that, this is definitely a sign that we're trending towards pride. Notice Jesus continues to say they make their phylacteries wide and their tassels on their garments long. What is a phylactery? Well, that was just a little box that they would wear around their neck, and in that box, there were scriptures there. But the idea is that this actually became more of an external thing to say, you know what, look, I read the word, I know the Bible, look at my phylactery, instead of paying attention to the very words that were in that box. That would be like us wearing a cross around our neck, or wearing a bracelet, a Christian bracelet, or having a Bible filled with all sorts of highlighting in it, hoping that people will see how much we've highlighted and underlined our Bible so they would think that we are spiritual. And many of these things are done with the motivation to be seen externally. Notice verse 6. It says, they love the place of honor at banquets and the most important seats in the synagogues. And so once again, if you are the type of person, maybe you're in leadership at your church or whatnot, and you love to be seen, you love to be in the place of prominence, or you love to have special seats or whatnot, he says these are ways that you can tell that you're trending towards self-righteousness. He goes on and says in verse 7, they love to be greeted with respect in the marketplaces and to be called rabbi by others. Now, this is my favorite one. In other words, if you have some sort of position or some place of authority, or you are a minister or a reverend or something like that, and you are the type of person, maybe you're in leadership at your church, and you have a title in front of your name, and you just feel the need for everybody around you to address you with that title, or you find yourself quickly getting bothered whenever people do not call you evangelist this, or prophetess this, or pastor this, or bishop this, or reverend, or steward, or whatever your title is, I would suggest to say that you are not worthy of having the title that's in front of your name if you, for any reason, get bothered when people do not call you by that title. As a matter of fact, Paul said in 1 Corinthians chapter 4, this then is how you ought to regard us, as servants of Christ and as those entrusted with the mysteries God has revealed. He says, hey, you don't need to call us bishop. You don't need to call us pastor. You don't need to call us evangelist or prophetess. That's what you do. That's not who you are. So Paul says we should be regarded merely as servants. Let me give you 3 common ways that if we're not careful, we can be guilty of doing certain things merely for show. The first is in our finances. Sometimes if we have money, we have a good job, we have possessions, cars, houses, the ability to travel, this, that, and the other, we sometimes tend to try to flaunt that in front of everybody else so that other people will see how much money we have. But not only in our finances, but also in our families. And so let's say we have a good family, or let's say maybe we don't have a good family. We have things going on in our marriage, things with our children. We tend to do things for show to make everybody else think that everything is perfect. We boast about our kids. We boast about what we have. We boast about how great our marriages are. And if we're not careful, if we really check our motivation, it's clear that we're saying these things or doing these things because we want other people to see what we have going on. Not only our finances, not only in our family, but also in our faith. If we're not careful, we will find ourselves doing things on the external in hopes that people will see us, whether that may be serving in church, using our spiritual gifts, or whatever it may be, quoting scripture, praying too long, worship, things that we do during our worship service. We must always check ourselves to make sure there's nothing within us that is motivated to do these things simply to be seen. Question of the day, what are some other ways or signs that you can identify pride happening in your life? Leave those in the comment section below. If you like this video, hit the like button. Don't forget to share it with your friends. Be sure and subscribe. Check out some of the other videos on this channel. Hey, thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you next time on The Beat.